My family broke into my multi-million-dollar lake house. So, I called the police, and let my firm's ruthless corporate legal team obliterate their entire lives. Original post. I am Ethan, 35 years old. For the last 6 years, I have worked grueling 70-hour weeks, sacrificing my youth, my social life, and my sanity, pouring every single ounce of my corporate salary into a deeply personal dream. All of it was stolen in a single afternoon by my own brother. While I was sitting in my downtown office finalizing a massive commercial real estate deal, my parents and my older brother were popping expensive champagne in the living room of my secret lake house. My brother actually stood on my brand new, custom-finished hardwood floors, raised a crystal glass to our extended relatives, and said with a completely straight face, "We deserve this upgrade. After years of struggling while others had it easy, it is our time." They laughed, they cheered. They claimed my property as their own. But there was one massive, life-ruining detail they did not know. That house was not just a vacation home. It was the centerpiece of a 50-acre corporate development project, and they were trespassing on multi-million-dollar commercial territory. And now, they are facing a lawsuit they can never, ever win. Let us go back to the exact moment the security alert buzzed in my pocket and changed my life forever. It was a Tuesday afternoon in early October. The kind of crisp, brilliant day where the autumn sunlight hits the glass of the high-rises just right, making the whole city look like it is coated in gold. I was sitting at my mahogany desk on the 38th floor of my firm's headquarters in the financial district. The air conditioning was humming quietly in the background. I had just received a major promotion to project director the week prior, a title that came with a heavy equity stake and a workload that would break most people. I was in the middle of reviewing a quarterly financial report tracking the zoning permits for our latest acquisition when my phone vibrated violently against the polished wood of my desk. I ignored it at first. I am a man who lives and dies by his schedule, and my focus was entirely on the numbers in front of me. But then it buzzed again and again. 3 rapid, aggressive vibrations that signaled a high-priority alert. I glanced down, expecting an emergency email from my lawyer regarding an upcoming contract negotiation or a frantic message from a junior analyst. Instead, the screen displayed a notification from the state-of-the-art security system I had personally installed exactly 48 hours prior at the Oak Ridge Valley property. Motion detected in the primary living sector. Multiple heat signatures identified. My brow furrowed into a deep knot of confusion. The contractors had completely finished their work. The professional cleaning crew had left yesterday afternoon, handing the master keys directly to me. I had personally locked the reinforced doors and armed the perimeter. Nobody had the access codes to that gate except me. I picked up the phone, my thumb hovering over the screen for a fraction of a second before tapping the notification. The video feed buffered a spinning white circle on a black background before the high-definition, full-color feed flooded my screen. My blood turned to absolute ice. The air in my lungs simply vanished. Balloons. Large, obnoxious metallic gold balloons reading "Welcome Home" were bobbing gently against the vaulted cedar ceiling I had spent months agonizing over with my architectural team. Below those balloons, a crowd of people milled about my sanctuary. I zoomed in, my fingers shaking just slightly against the cold glass of the screen. I recognized the back of a head. I recognized a jacket. And then he turned around. It was Connor, my older brother Connor. He was wearing a crisp, unnecessarily expensive polo shirt, holding a crystal champagne flute. My crystal. From the sealed boxes I had not even unpacked yet. Beside him stood his wife, Mia. She was leaning against my custom marble kitchen island, a smug, satisfied smile plastered across her face as she sliced into a massive sheet cake. The cake literally had the words "The Bennett Family Estate" written on it in thick chocolate frosting. The audio feed kicked in a second later. The sound of my family's laughter, loud and completely unbothered, echoed off the walls of the home I had built specifically to escape their toxic shadow. I sat paralyzed in my ergonomic office chair, watching the surreal nightmare unfold in real time. My mother, Helen, walked into the frame. She patted Connor on the back, her face glowing with a profound pride she had never, not once in my entire 35 years of existence, directed at me. My father, Robert, was holding a digital camera, taking pictures of the stone fireplace as if he were a proud patriarch documenting his legacy. "To our perfect new home," Connor announced, his voice booming through the tiny speaker of my phone with sickening clarity. "It is about time our luck turned around. No more cramped apartments, no more struggling. This is our fresh start." I gripped the edge of my desk so hard the wood groaned in protest. My knuckles turned completely white, the tendons in my hands aching from the pressure. Luck? He actually called it luck. He did not see the 6 years of grueling overtime. He did not see the canceled dates, the sleepless nights, the holidays I spent eating stale takeout alone at my desk to secure my corporate standing. He did not see the relentless discipline required to amass the capital for this exact property. He saw a beautiful, expensive house, and his immediate, unfiltered instinct was to simply decide it belonged to him. I did not scream. I did not throw my phone against the wall. When you work in high-stakes commercial real estate, when you navigate rooms full of cutthroat investors and aggressive legal teams, you learn very quickly that emotion is your biggest liability. Anger makes you sloppy. You do not get mad. You get leverage. You secure your assets. I closed the security app, letting it run in the background to record every single second of their intrusion. I opened the heavy bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out the thick manila folder I had brought from the bank that morning. It contained the original deed, the certified wire transfer receipts, the property tax documents, and the commercial zoning maps. My name was the only one on every single page. I shoved the folder into my leather briefcase, snapped the brass locks shut, and stood up. I straightened my tie. I walked out of my private office. My assistant looked up from her monitors as I marched past her desk. "Cancel my afternoon meetings," I said, my voice completely devoid of inflection. "Reschedule the zoning board call for tomorrow morning. I have a severe pest control issue at a private property that requires my immediate physical presence." The elevator ride down to the parking garage felt like an eternity suspended in time. Every ding of the passing floors echoed like the ticking of a bomb waiting to detonate in my chest. I reached my designated parking spot, threw the briefcase into the passenger seat of my car, and gripped the steering wheel. I was about to put the car in drive when a memory hit me. A memory so vivid and painful it knocked the breath entirely from my lungs. A brutal reminder of exactly why I could not and would not show these people a single ounce of mercy today. Growing up in our household, the dynamic was established early and enforced brutally. Connor was the golden child, the radiant sun, and the rest of us were just insignificant planets forced to orbit his perceived brilliance. If Connor managed to get a B on a high school history test, my parents threw a celebratory dinner. If I brought home a flawless report card with straight A's, I was quietly told to put it away and not to brag because it might make my brother feel inadequate about his own struggles. I learned very early on that my assigned role in the family was to be invisible, silent, and compliant right up until the exact moment Connor needed something fixed, paid for, or covered up. The most defining moment of my life, the trauma that forged the impenetrable armor I wear today, happened when I was 21 years old. I had been working 3 different jobs since I was 16 years old to build my college fund. I flipped burgers in a greasy kitchen until midnight, mowed lawns in the sweltering summer heat, and did basic bookkeeping for local small businesses on the weekends. I saved every single penny, denying myself basic teenage experiences. I had over $35,000 sitting in a joint savings account at the local credit union, an account my mother was still technically a signer on from when I had opened it as a minor. Connor, meanwhile, had predictably dropped out of his second attempt at college to start a custom apparel business. He convinced my parents it was the next massive industry disruptor. He maxed out both of their credit cards, leased a commercial warehouse he absolutely could not afford, and within 8 miserable months, he was facing total bankruptcy and a massive lawsuit from unpaid suppliers. I will never forget walking into the bank branch on a rainy Tuesday to withdraw my tuition money for my junior year of university. The teller looked at her computer screen, frowned, and then looked at me with a deep horrific pity in her eyes. She softly informed me that the account balance was zero. My mother had walked into the branch 2 days prior and legally drained the entire $35,000. I drove home in a state of blinding, suffocating panic. When I kicked the front door open and confronted them in the kitchen, my mother did not even have the decency to look guilty. She was calmly stirring a pot of chicken soup on the stove. Without breaking eye contact, she told me that family helps family. She stated that Connor was in desperate, life-ruining trouble, and since I was the smart one, I could easily figure out how to get student loans to cover my education. My father chimed in from the dining table, his voice dripping with condescension, telling me that I was being incredibly selfish for caring about a college fund when my brother's entire future and freedom were on the line. They treated my life savings like it was their emergency fund. I packed my bags and moved out that exact night. I took out crushing high-interest student loans to finish my degree. I survived on cheap ramen noodles, tap water, and pure unadulterated spite. Years later, when I bought a vintage car as a tangible symbol of my survival, my parents demanded I sell it to fund Connor's mortgage. When I refused, they called me a disgrace. I vowed then to build a fortress so high they could never reach me. And I did. I bought the Oak Ridge Valley property in absolute secrecy. I gripped the steering wheel as I turned off the main highway. As I pulled up to the property line of my estate, the fragile peace evaporated into the cold autumn air. There were 6 different cars parked haphazardly across my pristine, freshly seeded front lawn. Deep, muddy tire tracks violently gouged the soft earth I had just paid a premium landscaping crew thousands of dollars to perfect. Connor's oversized, lifted truck was parked aggressively right by the front door, crushing a bed of newly planted hydrangeas. I did not pull into the driveway. I parked my car horizontally across the main gate entrance, effectively barricading them all inside the property. I reached into the glove compartment, pulled out my phone, and dialed the local precinct. "Dispatch, this is Ethan Bennett," I said, my voice dangerously calm. I am the legal owner of the property located at 42 Oak Ridge Valley. I have a break-in in progress. There are multiple hostile trespassers currently occupying my residence. I need sworn officers here immediately. I hung up the phone, grabbed my heavy leather briefcase and stepped out of the car. The familiar, comforting scent of the lake water hit my nose, but it was immediately ruined by the smell of a cheap barbecue grill being fired up on my custom cedar deck. They were cooking meat on my deck. I stood perfectly still at the edge of the driveway, the cold wind whipping at my trench coat, waiting until I saw the flashing blue and red lights of the police cruisers turning down the narrow lane. 2 patrol cars pulled up rapidly, their tires crunching loudly against the gravel. A veteran officer whom I had spoken to a week prior stepped out. I handed him the heavy manila folder containing my state identification and the finalized closing documents. They bypassed my security. They broke in, I stated firmly. The officer checked the dates, verified the signatures, and nodded. Understood. Let's clear them out. I walked up the front steps of my own home, the gravel crunching aggressively under my expensive dress shoes. I bypassed the smart lock by punching my master passcode into the keypad, pushed the heavy oak door wide open, and stepped directly into the grand foyer. The wall of noise hit me instantly. Shouting, obnoxious laughter, and loud pop music blaring from a portable speaker. Connor was standing right by the grand staircase. When he noticed me, his confident smile faltered for a fraction of a second before he replaced his shock with a mask of forced arrogant joviality. Ethan, you finally made it. Connor shouted over the blaring music. Mom said she couldn't get a hold of you. Welcome to the new family compound. Come on in. He took a step forward, intending to pull me into a fake brotherly hug. I simply stepped back, creating a path, and allowed the police officers to walk past me into the bright light of the foyer. The music was suddenly cut off. The silence that fell over the massive room was deafening. 30 pairs of terrified eyes turned away from the champagne and the cake, staring in utter shock at the uniforms. Evening, folks, the officer said loudly. Who exactly claims ownership of this residence? Connor immediately puffed out his chest. I do, officer. Well, technically, it is the family home. We just bought it. He lied to a police officer with the terrifying smoothness of a lifelong con artist. The officer looked at Connor with pure disgust. Sir, I have the verified legal owner of this property standing right beside me holding the deed. And he states that you are trespassing. Connor let out a loud, obnoxious laugh. Ethan own this place? You've got to be kidding. My little brother is an office drone. My parents bought this house for me and my wife. My mother pushed her way to the front. Ethan, what on earth do you think you are doing, calling the police on your own brother during a family gathering? Stop this embarrassing nonsense right now. I slowly opened the manila folder. I looked dead into Connor's eyes. This is a legally binding property deed, I said, my voice cold and sharp, paid for entirely by wire transfer from my personal corporate accounts. You have no lease agreement. You have no keys. You forced the side window lock to gain unauthorized entry. In the eyes of the law, that is a felony. Mia, Connor's wife, marched up, her face burning red with rage. You selfish prick, you have all this hidden money and you kept it from us while we struggle? Family shares. Your parents explicitly said this is a family asset now. We need the space for the kids. My parents do not own my bank accounts anymore, Mia, I replied, my voice dropping to a freezing whisper. Not since they stole my college fund when I was 21 years old. There is no inheritance for you here. The officer stepped aggressively between us. Mr. Bennett has provided unquestionable proof of legal ownership. Every single one of you has exactly 10 minutes to gather your personal belongings and vacate these premises, or you will be placed in handcuffs. Absolute chaos erupted. Relatives started murmuring in panic, frantically grabbing their coats. My father turned a deep shade of purple, pointing a shaking finger at me. You are kicking your own flesh and blood out onto the street over a pile of bricks. You are dead to me, Ethan. We will sue you for everything. You died to me a very long time ago, Robert, I shot back, intentionally dropping the title of Dad. As the crowd humiliatingly shuffled toward the front door, Connor passed by me, bumping my shoulder. I'll hire a lawyer tomorrow. I'll sue you for half the value of this place. It's family property under verbal agreement. I whispered back, try it. But as the room cleared, I caught movement near the kitchen. My younger cousin, Zoe, was frantically trying to slip out through the back patio door. I had let Zoe live rent-free on my couch in the city for 2 months last year when she was facing eviction. I stepped quickly into her path. Going somewhere in a hurry, Zoe? She looked down, her face burning with guilt. Ethan, I'm so sorry, I swear I just came for the free food. How did Connor know the exact address? I demanded. My title company is bound by a strict NDA. She started to cry desperate tears. He paid me, Ethan. He gave me $1,500 in cash. When I stayed at your apartment, I saw the emails with the luxury realtor on your laptop. I'm so sorry, I really needed the money for rent. She sold my sanctuary to the wolves for a miserable $1,500. Get out of my house, I said, my voice lethal. If you ever come within 50 feet of me again, I will have my firm's legal team charge you with wire fraud and corporate espionage for accessing my private devices. She ran out the door, sobbing. I locked the heavy front door behind the last of them. There were cake crumbs mashed into my expensive marble counter and muddy footprints tracked all across my floors. They truly believed they had the divine right to take everything I had built simply because we shared the same toxic blood. Update 1. The next morning, the storm made landfall with devastating force. I woke up on a cheap air mattress in the center of the master bedroom. My phone screen lit up with 74 unread text messages and dozens of alerts. My Aunt Beatrice, the supposed family peacekeeper, had started a massive group chat bombardment. How could you humiliate your brother? You need to apologize and let them move in. My father left a venomous voicemail demanding I hand over the keys or face a lawsuit for a shared family asset. Then I opened Facebook. Mia had posted a massive, tear-stained essay complete with a highly manipulated picture of her kids looking destitute. She called me a monster, a greedy corporate sellout who abandoned his family. I meticulously took high-resolution screenshots of every post, comment, and legal threat. I compiled them into an encrypted digital file. At 9 a.m., I drove straight to the top floor of my corporate headquarters. I walked into the secure glass-walled conference room where Julian, the lead corporate attorney for our firm, was waiting. I saw the Facebook post. Julian said, "Your brother is an absolute idiot." "I don't care about Facebook drama, Julian," I said, connecting my laptop to the screen. "I care about the physical perimeter of the property." The heavy mahogany door opened, and Vance, the CEO of our firm, walked in. Vance was a terrifying, brilliant man who had built his real estate empire from nothing and had zero tolerance for parasites. "Ethan," Vance said, taking his seat. "I hear you had a severe pest control problem at the Oak Ridge Valley site yesterday." "I did, sir. My family broke into the primary residence. They are officially claiming a right to the property and threatening a lawsuit for ownership." Vance chuckled, a dry, cold sound. "Fascinating. Tell me, Ethan, do they know that the house they are fighting over merely sits on Lot 1 of a 50-acre commercial development owned entirely by this corporation? Do they know that you are the lead project director and hold a 20% equity stake in the entire surrounding valley?" "No," I smiled, feeling the heavy armor of my reality lock into place. "They think I am just a selfish brother who bought a nice vacation home with his salary." My father literally threatened to bring a local family lawyer to claim an oral agreement. Julian laughed out loud. "A local family lawyer? Going up against our corporate litigation team? We will bury them in so much legal paperwork they will go bankrupt, just paying the retainer fees to read it." "We secure the perimeter immediately," Vance ordered. "Julian, authorize the corporate security team. I want 24/7 armed patrols at the main gate. If your family steps one single foot on that soil again, they are actively interfering with a multi-million-dollar corporate asset. We will hit them with commercial damages that will ruin them for generations." I drove back to the lake house. The corporate security team had already set up massive unmarked black SUVs near the reinforced steel gate. As I pulled up, I saw my parents' beat-up sedan idling dangerously on the shoulder. My father was angrily pacing, screaming at the stoic security guards. When he saw me, he slammed his hand against my window. "What the hell is this, Ethan? Armed thugs? Give me the gate code right now. We are not leaving until Connor has a set of keys." I rolled the window down exactly 2 inches. "You are attempting to trespass on a private, highly secured corporate zone." "Corporate zone?" My father sneered. "Stop playing games. Connor needs this place to raise his kids. You are single. You owe us for raising you. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You owe. Verbal agreements are legally binding. Tell your cheap lawyer to bring a very big briefcase," I said softly, "because he is going to need it to carry the countersuit." I rolled the window up seamlessly, and the heavy steel gate closed behind me. I thought the overwhelming security presence would be the definitive end of the nightmare. But toxic family dynamics do not operate on logic. Exactly 4 days later, the perimeter alarm chimed. I switched my primary monitor to the high-definition front gate feed. What I saw made my jaw clench tight enough to grind my teeth. It was a coordinated caravan of sheer audacity. Connor's lifted truck was parked aggressively right up against my corporate gates. Behind it was my parents' sedan. Behind that was a flashy, tacky cherry red convertible. And parked horizontally behind that convertible, blocking the entire public access lane, was a massive rented commercial moving van. A fully loaded moving van. They piled out of their vehicles looking frighteningly confident. But the most concerning detail was the unknown woman stepping out of the cherry red convertible. She was dressed in an aggressively bright yellow pantsuit, holding a bulky briefcase. She had the distinct swagger of a strip mall lawyer who spends her career bullying unrepresented people in small claims court. She was barking orders at my parents. My desk phone rang. Mr. Bennett, the head of security said, his voice laced with heavy professional annoyance. Your family has returned in force. They brought an unidentified female claiming to be their retained legal counsel. She is waving unfiled papers and demanding we open the gates under threat of a lawsuit. Furthermore, they brought a moving van to establish physical occupancy. They were actually trying to establish squatters' rights. They thought if they got their cheap furniture onto the grass, the law would magically protect them. Do not open the gate, I am coming down there, I ordered. By the time I reached the towering steel gates, it was a full-blown circus. Connor was unloading heavy canvas camping tents onto the grass. Mia was screaming at a security guard. When they saw me, a cheer of vindictive triumph went up among them. My father gripped the steel bars. It is over, Ethan, we brought actual legal representation today. Open this gate right now, or we will take everything you own in court. I bypassed my screaming family and looked directly at the woman in the yellow pantsuit. And who exactly are you supposed to be? I asked. Yes. She stepped forward confidently, sliding a flimsy business card through the gaps. I am Roxanne Thorne, attorney at law. I officially represent Robert, Helen, and Connor Bennett. My clients have formally retained me to enforce their absolute legal right to this residential property, which was purchased using funds heavily subsidized by their years of providing for your education. Verbal agreements are completely actionable. We are officially filing a lawsuit for 50% ownership, plus punitive damages for emotional distress. Emotional distress? I repeated slowly. You mean the emotional distress of not being able to steal my hard-earned salary to fund another failed business? Connor violently shoved his way to the front. You owe us your life, Ethan. Mom and Dad completely drained their life savings for my business. If you don't let me move in today, Roxanne is going to tie this place up in probate court for the next 10 agonizing years. My mother dabbed her perfectly dry eyes with a tissue. Just give your brother the guest house and the garage, Ethan. We don't want to fight you in a dirty courtroom. We just want what is fundamentally fair. I looked at all of them. They had relied on weaponized guilt for so many decades that they genuinely believed it functioned as a legally binding contract. Miss Thorne? I said slowly, entirely ignoring my family. Before you drove out here today, did you actually pull the commercial zoning records and the corporate ownership structure for this specific GPS coordinate? Or did you just lazily look up the simple residential deed I filed 3 days ago? Roxanne frowned, her arrogant smile slipping. I pulled the residential deed, obviously. Which makes it a personal asset directly subject to our family lawsuit. I see, I replied calmly. Then you are a very terrible, negligent lawyer, and you are about to lose your license to practice law. Before she could object, a low, incredibly heavy rumbling sound echoed down the narrow road. Coming down the lane, systematically blocking the moving van and Roxanne's convertible from the rear, completely cutting off any possible route of escape, was a convoy of 4 massive, fully armored black SUVs. They moved with terrifying military-like precision. The heavy doors opened simultaneously. A dozen large men in immaculate tailored dark suits stepped out. They were the elite corporate crisis management and litigation team from my firm. And stepping out of the lead vehicle was Vance, the CEO of my company. He had arrived, and he brought the absolute, unyielding wrath of a multi-billion-dollar corporate empire with him. The arrogant shouting from my family died instantly in their throats. Roxanne visibly took a staggering step backward, her eyes darting frantically between the imposing armored SUVs and Vance's cold, predatory gaze. She suddenly realized with horrifying clarity that she was swimming with actual leviathans. Vance walked smoothly past the rented moving van. 2 of our top corporate litigators walked precisely 1 step behind him. I gave a subtle nod to the security guard. The heavy steel gate slowly hummed open. I stepped out onto the public road and stood shoulder to shoulder with Vance. We formed an unbreakable wall of corporate dominance. Ethan, Vance said, his voice dripping with absolute authority, I see the local pest problem has inexplicably multiplied. It appears so, sir, I replied smoothly. My father desperately tried to muster his bravado. He pointed a shaking finger at Vance. Who the hell do you think you are? Are you this boy's boss? You need to tell your arrogant employee to hand over the keys before my lawyer sues him for everything he is worth. Vance did not even look at my father. He turned his cold gaze directly onto Roxanne. You are the legal counsel representing these individuals? He asked politely, though it sounded like a loaded threat. Roxanne swallowed hard, clutching her briefcase. Yes, I represent the Bennett family in a civil dispute regarding the rightful occupation of this residential asset. Vance simply snapped his fingers once. The lead corporate litigator stepped forward, clicked open his leather briefcase, and pulled out a stack of legally bound documents as thick as a metropolitan phone book. He handed the massive stack directly into Roxanne's shaking hands. Miss Thorne, Vance said smoothly. I am Vance, CEO of Vanguard Holdings. What you are currently holding is the finalized master deed, the approved commercial zoning permits, and the highly confidential corporate equity structure for the Oak Ridge Valley Commercial Development Project. Roxanne's hands were trembling so violently that the papers rustled loudly. Her eyes widened in pure, unfiltered horror as she scanned the bold legal text. I strongly suggest you read those documents carefully before you speak another word. Vance continued, his voice dropping to a lethal quiet calm. Because you have made a catastrophic, career-ending error. This house is not a simple personal residential asset. It is the designated primary on-site management facility for a 50-acre commercial development. The entire valley surrounding this house, including the very road your clients are currently blocking, is private corporate property owned entirely and exclusively by Vanguard Holdings. Connor let out a high-pitched, nervous laugh. What is he talking about, Ethan? Stop with the fake legal mumbo-jumbo. It's just a lake house. Shut up, Connor, Roxanne hissed violently. The bright color was rapidly draining from her face, leaving her looking ghost pale and on the verge of physical collapse. Furthermore, Vance said, turning his piercing gaze to my parents who physically recoiled. Ethan Bennett is not merely an employee, he is the lead project director of this multi-million-dollar development, and he personally holds a 20% equity stake in this specific corporate subsidiary. The residential deed he filed was a mere legal formality. By attempting to lay claim to this property, by repeatedly trespassing, and by threatening to tie it up in court, you are not threatening a family member. You are actively, illegally threatening a massive corporate initiative. The silence that followed was absolute and deafening. My mother's mouth opened and closed repeatedly like a fish suffocating on dry land. For 35 agonizing years, they had treated me like a useless wallet, an invisible stepping stone meant only to facilitate Connor's supposed greatness. They truly thought I was just a guy with a decent salary. They had absolutely no idea that I was sitting on a throne of corporate equity, wielding financial and legal power they could not even begin to comprehend. Our lead corporate litigator spoke up, his voice utterly unyielding. Because your clients have repeatedly harassed a senior corporate executive, trespassed on a secure commercial site, and threatened frivolous litigation to extort corporate assets, my team has already drafted a comprehensive countersuit. If you and your clients do not withdraw from this property in exactly 60 seconds, Vanguard Holdings will sue Robert, Helen, and Connor Bennett for commercial interference, criminal trespassing, and attempted corporate extortion. We will legally seize Connor Bennett's remaining business assets. We will place a massive financial lien on Robert and Helen Bennett's primary residence. We will bankrupt them, and we will take the house they sleep in. The litigator took one aggressive step closer to Roxanne. And as for you, Miss Thorne, if you file one single solitary piece of paperwork regarding this matter in any court in this state, we will immediately report you to the State Bar Association for gross professional misconduct. We will bury your pathetic small practice in so many legal injunctions, you will be forced to sell your car just to pay the filing fees to defend yourself. Roxanne dropped her briefcase. It hit the pavement with a loud clatter. She looked at Connor, her eyes wide with unadulterated terror. I am officially dropping you as clients. She practically screamed, throwing her hands in the air. Consider our legal representation permanently terminated. Do not ever contact my office again. She spun around, sprinting to her red convertible. She started the engine with a roar, aggressively navigated around the armored SUVs, and sped away, leaving my family completely abandoned, utterly humiliated, and entirely defenseless. Connor stood completely frozen on the grass, his mouth hanging open. Mia looked like she was about to vomit. My father's false bravado had completely shattered into a million pieces, leaving behind nothing but a terrified, weak old man who finally realized he had picked a fight with a god. I stepped forward. You wanted to use the law against me, Robert? I asked, my voice echoing with years of suppressed anger. You wanted to play the legal game and steal what is mine. Welcome to the major leagues. Now, pack up your pathetic camping tents and get off my corporate property before I have the security team physically restrain you for criminal extortion. Update 2. The immediate aftermath was the most immensely satisfying display of cowardice I have ever witnessed. The very second Roxanne's car disappeared, the crushing reality crashed down upon my parents. They were staring directly down the barrel of a multi-million-dollar corporate legal team that had just explicitly threatened to take their home and their retirement. In the blink of an eye, the unbreakable family loyalty they constantly preached evaporated. Ethan, please. My mother suddenly sobbed, taking a desperate step toward me. Real tears were finally falling. We didn't know, Connor lied to us. He told us he had a legal right to be here. We would never try to steal from your company. Please don't take our house. Connor whipped his head around in horrified shock. Mom, what the hell are you doing? You literally told me to fight him for it. You said he owed me this house. Shut your mouth, Connor. My father roared, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. But this time, his fury was aimed entirely at his precious golden child. You are a complete fool. You almost cost us our only home with your stupid, entitled schemes. We should never have bailed you out. My father quickly turned back to me, attempting a sickeningly sweet smile. Ethan, son, you have to understand. We don't understand these complex corporate structures. Let's just go inside, have coffee, and talk about how we can fix this as a family. I looked at them with freezing disgust. The moment they realized I possessed the legal capacity to completely destroy their comfortable lives, they instantly threw their beloved golden child directly under the bus. "Do not ever call me son again," I said, cutting through their pathetic apologies. "And there will be no coffee. You have exactly 30 seconds to move your vehicles, or my security team will impound them." "Ethan, you can't do this," Connor yelled, panic bleeding into his voice. "Mia is already threatening a divorce over the debt we took on for that lawyer. If you sue me, I'll lose custody of the kids. I will literally have nothing left." "Then you finally have exactly what you earned in this life, Connor," I replied coldly, "nothing." I turned my back and walked back through the heavy steel gates. The next morning, I went aggressively on the offensive. Julian and I systematically filed formal, permanent restraining orders against Robert, Helen, Connor, and Mia. We presented the high-definition security footage, the audio recordings of their extortion threats, and sworn statements from the corporate security team. The judge took one look at the evidence, shook his head in disgust, and granted the permanent restraining orders immediately. The fallout for Connor was absolutely catastrophic. Without my parents' ability to bail him out financially, his fragile finances collapsed. Within 2 agonizing months, Mia filed for a highly contentious divorce, citing his reckless behavior and the massive hidden credit card debt he had accumulated to pay Roxanne's retainer fee. She took primary custody of the kids, leaving Connor completely isolated, living in a cheap rented motel room, forced to sell his prized oversized truck just to pay his aggressive divorce lawyer. My parents tried repeatedly to send me handwritten letters begging for financial help, to cover Connor's mounting legal fees. I returned every single letter unopened, marked forcefully with a red stamp, "Return to sender." 6 months later, the Oak Ridge Valley Commercial Development Project officially broke ground. It was a massive, unprecedented success. To celebrate the milestone, I decided to host a lavish housewarming party at my lake house. I did not invite a single blood relative. Instead, my home was filled entirely with the people who had actually supported me. Julian was there, laughing loudly on my custom cedar deck. Vance made a rare personal appearance, shaking my hand warmly. It was a beautiful evening of genuine warmth and profound, uninterrupted peace. As the sun began to slowly set, painting the calm surface of the lake in brilliant shades of orange and deep purple, my personal encrypted phone buzzed softly in my pocket. I stepped away from the loud music and walked out to the quiet edge of the upper balcony. It was an unknown number, but I instantly recognized the area code from my hometown. Guided by a morbid curiosity, I answered it. "Ethan, is that you?" It was Aunt Beatrice, the supposed sweet, gentle family peacekeeper who had bombarded me with text messages calling me a monster 6 months ago. "What do you want, Beatrice?" I asked, my voice completely flat, automatically hitting the record button out of pure ingrained habit. "Ethan, please don't hang up," she pleaded, her voice trembling with theatrical distress. "I know the family is broken. Your parents won't even speak to Connor anymore. He's living in a terrible motel. But Ethan, I desperately need your help. My landlord is aggressively raising my rent next month, and I simply can't afford it. You have that massive beautiful house. Can't you find it in your heart to let your poor aging aunt stay in the guest room just for a little while until I get back on my feet?" I stood in the cool evening air and let out a slow, dark, humorless chuckle. "You want to live in the exact same house you aggressively demanded I hand over to Connor 6 months ago? I was only trying to keep the family peace," Beatrice cried defensively, pivoting instantly to play the victim. "Connor promised me. Connor said it would be better for the entire family if he had the space." "Wait," I interrupted sharply, my eyes narrowing as I stared out at the dark water. "Connor promised you what, exactly?" There was a long, terrified silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her ragged breathing. "Beatrice," I warned, my voice dropping to a lethal whisper, "tell me the absolute truth right now, or I will block this number forever." She finally broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "Connor promised me that if I helped convince your parents to force you out of the house, he would let me live in the guest house rent-free for the rest of my life. I can't afford a decent nursing home, Ethan, I just wanted a nice, safe place to live. I helped him plan it so I wouldn't end up on the street." The final, sickening piece of the puzzle clicked perfectly into place. The sweet, caring, innocent Aunt Beatrice was not a peacekeeper at all. She was the hidden architect. She was the one who had intentionally manipulated Connor's endless greed, stoking the fire of his entitlement so she could secretly secure a luxurious, free retirement for herself on my dime. "You are truly incredible, Beatrice," I said, feeling absolutely zero pity for the crying woman on the phone. "You coldly orchestrated the theft of my home, the destruction of my peace, and the manipulation of my parents entirely for your own selfish retirement plan. Listen to me very carefully. You will never, ever step foot on my property. I will not pay a single cent toward your rent, and quite frankly, I will not even attend your funeral when the time comes. You reap exactly what you sow. Do not ever call this number again. I hung up the phone. I permanently blocked the number. I stood completely alone on the balcony, the cool evening breeze coming off the lake, listening to the joyful sound of laughter and clinking glasses coming from inside my home. My true family. The greatest lesson I took away from this exhausting nightmare is that you absolutely cannot heal in the exact same toxic environment that broke you in the first place. You have to be incredibly willing to walk away from toxic people, even if society constantly tells you that you owe them your life just because they are family. Your success is your own, your peace is your own. Protect it with everything you have. Top comments. User 1. The absolute whiplash of your parents throwing Connor under the bus the millisecond they realized their own house was on the line is pure cinema. They created that monster, and the moment he wasn't useful, they abandoned him. Perfection. User 2. Aunt Beatrice being the puppet master all along just to score a free retirement home in your guest house is the most unhinged plot twist I've ever read. Good on you for recording that call and cutting her off forever. Enjoy your peace. User 3. The lawyer trying to use verbal agreement against a multi-billion-dollar corporate litigation team is hilarious. She really thought she was Elle Woods until the CEO pulled out a binder the size of a phone book. Well played, OP.